the big one probably next week. The big one is the one that the Buddha declared to be the most important out of all of them, which is generosity and gratitude. So, but yeah, let's go and get started. did dream it. Haha. Once in a while, my brain actually works. Cool. Okay, so today, and there's a copy for you. Today we're going to be going over the perfection of ethics, or the perfection of morality, right? Depending on who's doing the translating, this can go a couple of different ways. Almost always these are going to revolve around the precepts and the different kinds of precepts. So what we usually chant every single time we do the service is the 5 lay precepts, which is, those are the absolute most basic of all of them. Right? I vow to refrain from taking life. I vow to refrain from stealing. I vow to refrain from immoral sexual deeds. I vow to refrain from lying. I vow to refrain from getting intoxicated. Right? Those are the 5 super basic, like everybody can do these ones. Now, at certain times of the year, at certain times of the month, in a lot of places, these will be actually added to for the lay practitioners, right? Obviously, the monks and nuns, they still have their 227 that they follow all the time, right? Not just the 5, they do 227. Now, for those who are dedicated lay followers, those who are not clergy in any way, shape, or form, this usually will come down to either the 8, which is very, very common on the Uposatha observances, which would be twice a month. Usually this is the full moon day and the new moon day of the month. They would take these extra precepts, which are a little bit more advanced, right? And the whole point of that is that these are designed to increase our practice of doing the right thing, doing what is moral and ethical. And so we do that by taking these extra precepts. We go a little bit further than we normally will. We do a little bit extra. Some, like the Anagarikas, such as myself, and those who so choose, if you turn it around, we have the 10 precepts, right, which is a slightly more advanced form of the 8 precepts, but only just a little bit. And this one, it's more or less, they break up some of the 8, they break up one of the 8 into 2, and then they add another one to refrain from accepting gold and silver. And these ones, again, these are only done by the lay community maybe twice a month, right? So these are not like you have to do these all the time, every day, right? These are special observances, these are special practices dedicated to really deepening your perfection of morality, your perfection of doing the right thing. And they're not designed to be like you have to do every single one of these every day. If you can, hey, great, cool. But if you can't, do your best when we have, the new moon day or the full moon day. New moon day is actually the 26th, so this Saturday. Which I know, like for some in the Dharma Boots community, you're going to want to go out and maybe imbibe a little bit. That is your call, right? If you can follow the 8 or the 10 precepts during those times, it's important to do so, but nobody should feel like they have to. Right? So the basic things that I want to talk about is for the Sila-Paramita, which is when we're talking about the precepts, those are the Atta Sila, right? The Pancha Sila, the Atta Sila, and so forth, right? That is that word is precept or morality, right? To talk about that though, first we have to talk about something more important, which is what do we mean by morality? Now, if we're using a very, very standard Western definition, using the etymology of the word, using the history of the word morality or moral comes from a much older word, which essentially means regard for others. Which is why when we're talking about morals, we're really in modern context, we're looking in terms of manners, how you act in regard to others, how you're, what you do based on everybody else around you. Which is why every moral action takes into account the impact that it's going to have on others, right? And when we're looking at the precepts, we can see very clear echoes of that, right? Obviously, if you're undertaking the precept not to destroy living creatures, right? You have to take that other creature into account. You can't just be like, well, other creatures means nothing, right? I'm just not going to destroy. What does that mean? Like, at that point, what are we even talking about? Like, we're talking about nothing, right? Unless there's another creature there that could be destroyed and you choose not to, right? And again, that is the whole point in Buddhism of these moral practices, these precepts, is we choose to do them. There's no, divine being coming down in Buddhism saying, you're gonna do this, right? I look at what's going on, I look at what is happening, and I say, that's something that isn't good. I choose not to do that. I take it on myself not to do that. And if you fail, that's on you, right? Obviously, none of us are perfect, and some of us are going to fail a little bit at some of these. In Germany, the whole thing about being intoxicated, that one comes up quite a bit here.
Especially when you're private.
Unfortunate, but true, yeah. And let's not pretend like I don't know Blue Lotus is a thing in some of the barracks.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I have heard some stories.
There was an investigation recently.
Yeah.
Am I true?
Yeah. And some other things as well, right? Let's not pretend like everybody's perfect.
No.
Obviously, we as Buddhists, we look at these and we say, okay, I have chosen not to do this thing. I am not going to get intoxicated. I'm not going to consume those substances, wherever they may be.
Part of morality is recognizing and trying to change reality in a more positive lighting, if you will.
Yeah.
For not just yourself, but for everybody. Because maybe if you do something correct, you can impact somebody else to follow in the same footsteps, causing a good generational change.
Both directions, yeah. So looking at it just for you and looking at it for you and others, right? Which is why when we frame these, when the Buddha framed these actions, especially in his instructions to his own son, right? Because Rahula came into the order, and his shorter instructions to Rahula are essentially like using the metaphor of a mirror, right? If it's going to harm yourself, others, or both, you don't do it, right?
You need to. Why would you?
Right.
Why would you choose to harm yourself, which is ironic coming from me? And why would you choose to harm somebody else, which is ironic coming from my job?
So and that's kind of where we have to look at it very, very seriously. We can talk situational ethics all day and all night, and
sure.
while you were out in the field, we did in fact go through the Eightfold Noble Path, and we talked some situational ethics, especially.
I'm sad I missed that. I'm so sad I missed the Eightfold Ethics. That's a big one for me.
Well, they should still be up there, most of them anyway. But yeah, the whole point there is, yes, if that action is going to harm you, don't do it, right? If that action is going to harm somebody else, don't do it. If that action is going to harm you and somebody else, or you and lots of other people, don't do it.
Why are you? The word harm is even considered in your brain before you do it. Why are you doing it?
Some people, that isn't what they take into account, though, right? And that's where we get into, we choose to do these things. We are the owners of those deeds and the consequences thereof. We own the things that we choose to do.
Not only are we owning how we choose to do something, we're also owning how we choose to react to something. We can look at something and try to placebo affect it into being okay or normal when we know in reality that it shouldn't be. And in the best of our hearts and minds that it should be not okay. And that's something that we also have to take a step forward and internalize so that we can reproduce that same effect. Like drinking and driving.
Yeah. Right. So obviously when we're looking at morality, and we've kind of gone over that discussion, right? All of these actions that we take, that we've chosen to take, we have to choose those based on what kind of impact they're going to have, right? So this is, we talked, the root here, well, I don't know that we actually talked it out. So the basic root here is, when we talk right concentration, we talked about like how you're supposed to look at things, right? We talked right mindfulness, we talked about all of that. And the basic premise here is it's a concept of harm versus harmless, right? Harmfulness versus harmlessness, right? The point of doing the moral things is that they are harmless. They don't hurt others, especially without need, right? Again, we can talk situational ethics about how sometimes there is need, but unless there's need, which most of the time, if we're being good and honest, most of the time there's not. If we're causing harm for needless reasons, we're in the wrong. If we're causing harm for needful reasons, we're still kind of in the wrong. But, right, there's a little asterisk at the end there. If we're doing harmless things, that is the right answer, unless there's a need to do otherwise, unless there's a very clear and obvious need. From that standpoint of situational ethics. So, I wanted to go over some of the passages that I kind of selected for this particular thing, because they do talk about morals, and they do talk about virtue, which is another way that the precepts are sometimes thought of, right? These are virtues that we are practicing, that we are trying to do better at every day or every single chance that we get, right? So we are trying to increase our virtue, our perfection of virtue, by means of doing these things, right? So let's look. One time the Buddha was talking to a bunch of laypersons, the local community, in whatever place he was at, and they were asking, well, why do we do these virtuous things? What does it bring us, right? What does it do for us? As the lay community will do, right? A lot of people, when they're talking about religious stuff or when they're talking about like philosophical concepts, well, how does it relate to me? Right? That's the easy like default position. Obviously, we've talked morals in terms of how it relates to others, but what benefit does doing this moral stuff bring back home? Right? How does it do something that is useful? Right? And so the Buddha says, okay, well, there's 5 blessings. Right? 5 blessings, householders, accrue to the righteous person through his practice of virtue. Basically, his practice of the precepts. Great increase of wealth through his diligence, a favorable reputation, a confident deportment without timidity in every society, be that of nobles, brahmins, householders, or ascetics. So this is you're confident no matter what audience you're talking to, which is actually pretty powerful, right? Virtues will help you be confident. Who knew? Yeah. A serene death, and at the break of the body, rebirth in a happy state in the heavenly world. Okay, yeah, so those are definitely powerful ways to say, look, you do these things, you're getting some good results out of it. Yes, it helps others, and that's the whole point. But also, right, as a side benefit, right, I hate to like do the whole like TV product shilling thing, right? So if you buy now, you also get this, right? If you do moral things, you also get blessings, right? And that's we kind of see that a little bit here. And that's kind of like the fun way of saying, yeah, okay, yes, it's going to benefit others because that's the whole point. But you're also getting some out of it too, right? It's not just for them, right? You also earn good things as a result. A favorable reputation is definitely a good thing, right? Being confident, that's super important. A serene death, okay. Granted, there are some in our society who would say, no, I don't want a serene death. I want to go out in a blaze of glory. Yeah. right? Sometimes the serene death actually makes more sense.
I mean, I would love to be laid to rest at my homestead, so.
On my own terms, at my own place, right?
Exactly.
Particularly with those that I care about.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also there's that first one there, right? So somebody who's practicing these virtues, somebody who's doing, practicing these precepts, great increase of wealth through diligence, essentially. So being diligent about the precepts, being diligent about the virtues, and being a moral person will result, according to the Buddha, in material gains.
Discipline and patience, especially self-patience, we get you just about anywhere. Because if you have the
Discipline and patience, right? And maybe investing in the right causes that help others, right? That's going to come back, right? People are going to look at that and say, this guy's trustworthy. I can put my money in, and I know that it's going to be good causes.
Exactly.
Beautiful stuff, right? That's a kind of an amazing also a nice little side benefit. Like,
it all seems
order now, and you get.
It all seems to feed into itself, right?
Yeah.
You have confidence. If you have confidence in what you're doing it for the right moral reasons, then it'll have a favorable reputation, right?
Yeah.
And then with a favorable reputation, if you need something and you unfortunately needed to have to ask it from somebody else, you can temporarily ask it to borrow it, and now you have immeasurable wealth because anybody's willing to give you a leg on the limb because they respect you so much.
Yeah. And all that comes down to one word.
The greatest wealth is loyalty.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite quotes. I forgot who that's by. I'm pretty sure it's pretty generic, but it's a good quote.
Loyalty, trust, right? Because trust is a huge component in loyalty.
Exactly.
Right? So we see how this produces really powerful, good stuff. Right? Doing the right thing is a huge deal. Not just because, right, it's doing the right thing. Doing the right thing for doing the right thing that's important too, don't get me wrong. But doing the right thing and also getting all of this extra stuff on the side, like, hey, why not? Like, that's definitely the right way to go. Right? And then the other passage that I want to kind of talk about is a little bit more spiritual in nature, right? This is not talking to the householders, this is the Buddha having a little conversation, a little back and forth with Ananda. Where Ananda's asking a question and the Buddha's answering it, right? Question, answer, right? And so Ananda starts, what, O Venerable One, is the reward and blessing of wholesome morality? And the Buddha responds, freedom from remorse, Ananda, and of freedom from remorse, joy, Ananda, and of joy, rapture, Ananda, and of rapture, tranquility, Ananda, and of tranquility, happiness, Ananda, and of happiness, concentration, Ananda, and of concentration, vision and knowledge according to reality, and of the vision and knowledge according to reality, turning away in detachment, Ananda, and of the turning away in detachment, the vision and knowledge with regard to deliverance, Ananda. Deliverance here being another way of putting liberation, which is another way of putting enlightenment.
Okay, I figured.
I'm not super fond of how Jnana-Tilaka translated that, but that's his way of going about it. That's the way that he chose to phrase it. So, but what we're looking at here, this whole thing, right? Morality is at the basic. It is the basic level. It is the ground level, the foundation. And if we're looking at all of these, right, these are different steps on the path to the jhanic states, right? The meditative absorptions that if we find ourselves in them, eventually we will find ourselves in enlightenment, right? Those meditative absorptions are really powerful. Somebody's doing some PT out there, I know.
Karaoke today.
Karaoke during PT. Alright, well, we'll let it be. Alright? But yeah, we see each of these different steps, and these are all different parts or different ways of kind of signifying different parts of the jhanic absorptions. Which, if we're doing this right, like the basic 10 can start off with those, and then the advanced jhanas, right? I could do like a whole sermon on those. I'm not going to get into that today, but that's really kind of where we're going with this particular thing, right? You start off with morality, you build on that into these meditative states, these deeper, more powerful meditative states, that leads you directly to enlightenment. So morality is a great way to start that, right? It's the nice little foundation, or maybe I guess the Kickstarter, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we have this nice little thing, and we're looking at morality. We're saying it's not just some like dry and boring kind of like, oh well, you should do this right thing because we're telling you to, right? No, there's benefits in it. There's real powerful benefits. Let's do this thing. And I think that's a really powerful way of looking at it, especially when we're supposed to be perfecting morality. Why? Because it'll take us there. It'll take us to the goal, right? Obviously, we got to perfect all the other stuff too, right? But perfecting morality is a nice little Kickstarter towards that goal, and that's, in and of itself, that's a powerful thing. So, what I'm going to kind of recommend, obviously, this is your choice, do it or not, that's on you, right? Maybe take a look at either the 8 or the 10 precepts. Probably the 8. The 8 would probably be more sensible. Over the weekend, practice as many of the 8 as you possibly can, as much as you possibly can, right? Deepen your morality and see where that leads you in your meditation. Right? It should produce at least a little bit of benefit, right? Even if it's just for one day. Practicing these things with that mindset of, hey, I'm doing this because it's useful. I'm doing this because it's going to benefit rather than harm. It's going to be it's going to be something that I can take back and say, look, I'm doing this not just for me. I'm doing this for everybody. Right? And when we do that, even if it is just one day a month or 2 days a month, whatever it is, right? Enjoy the benefits thereof. Why not? Why not? So, okay. I'm going to leave it at that for right now. We're going to go ahead and close out and Thanks for watching Dharma Boots. We'll see you guys next time.